Hey one, hey all, I hope you're doing fantastic today. I know that I am. Now, I've never been a huge fan of the movie line. In fact, during the run of The Last Knight, I was pretty hard on a lot of those figures for a lot of reasons. But I've been quite impressed thus far with the Transformers Studio Series line. And today we're going to take a look at perhaps the most impressive of the bunch. The big, bold, brash, beautiful, beastly bot known as Leader Class Blackout, and several custom paint apps that I did with him. He's going to be our focus in the latest GotBot True review. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. Please like, comment, share. Of course, hit that subscribe button. Stick around, have your say, and have some fun with us here on the channel. A lot of great things to come. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, and Me Everywhere. And check out Transformers Collectors NL while you're at it. And this is Leader Class Blackout. Now, it's arguable if he's the best. Some people would say yes, and some people would say no. He has kind of been the source of a lot of scrutiny and debate, with people saying that he doesn't have as many paint apps as he should. Actually, he has a lot. It's just not all of them are obvious. Even though there was room for improvement, isn't there always? Some people have complained about his height, saying he's not tall enough to be a leader. Well, he's not short enough to be a Voyager. In fact, I'm going to make a case for this guy being a leader class figure. Anyway, enough of me babbling on here in this little introduction. How about we head over to the table and take a closer look at this guy? Like I said, I'm weak, man, when it comes to glorious new plastic, and this guy definitely fills the bill. Before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to Cruiser Vlogs. And we have the box, the instructions, and the big guy himself, Blackout, right here. We're going to look at everything to do with him. Before I kind of take everything out of the way here, I just want to point out that on the back of this guy, if you have him transformed correctly, the backpack is up. I believe it was down in the box, and the little Scorponok character, who I'm going to rename and I'll talk about him in a bit, attaches to a peg on the back. There's like a slot in his tummy, and if you position him correctly, it can lock these two helicopter blades. These two? Maybe it's these two. These two helicopter blades into position so that the backpack doesn't swing about. I haven't seen anybody really mention that that's an option, but the way his scorpion legs are molded allows you to do that. It's great. It kind of adds a little bit to the stability for the guy. So, taking all of this out of it, we're going to start off by taking a quick look at the box. And this is the box. It's like all of these boxes. We have a picture of Blackout here and another one of him on the side. A nice glorious shot of him over here. And an Autobot symbol. I don't know why that's not a Decepticon symbol on these ones, but whatever. Back, product shots, it is what it is. When we come here, we can of course take out the plastic insert, which is full of the paper ties that we got a few years ago. Oh, so common. Lay that aside. And of course, get that paper tie out of it. And of course, we can remove the inner part here. And it gives us our display stand. It's a scene from the base that he was part of in the first movie. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I really don't remember much about Blackout. Probably because there wasn't much to remember. I mean, he had like this battle scene at the beginning of the first movie that was really dark. I never really got a good look at the guy. I knew that there were movements and things and stuff happening, but I never really got a good look at the guy. At the end of the movie, he again partakes in the great big battle and ends up, I think, getting taken out. So, you know, he didn't have a huge role, but he just looks fantastic. Naturally, you can take Blackout, and however you want to set him up, you know, he can go in his display area thing. Again, it's a nice option if you have the room to display them this way. He comes with this instruction booklet, and it's a pretty decent one. Like, the images are small, but they're clear for the most part. And you might actually need it with this guy because apparently he has, get this, 46 steps. That's absolutely crazy for a mainline figure. 46 steps, wow. We also have this rather gloriously painted little guy. It is a rendition of Scorponok from the movie. His front claws, they can move a little bit. One of them likes to pop out on mine. It's just a little, like, you know, friction thing in a slot right there. There's a lot of unpainted gray plastic as well, but the silver and the gold is nice. The red on the eyes is nice. He does not convert to another mode. The tail has two hinges, one down here at the base and one up right here, so you can straighten it out if you want to do that. To me, movie Scorponok isn't really Scorponok. Like, you know, call me a G1 guy all you want, but I feel like a true Scorponok should have Lord Zarak as a head, and he should be a 2-foot tall creature that turns into a city and a scorpion. So from this point forward, I'm going to rename this guy as, I don't know, Scorpotron, something like that. I don't know. If you got a better name, hey, let me know. But and I know that some people will argue and say, no, movie Scorponok is Scorponok. And I get it. If your reference is the movies, of course this is Scorponok to you. It's a nice nod because he can go on Blackout in robot mode and Hideaway in helicopter mode. And if you will recall from the movie, he did really deploy Scorponok. So it's a cool addition. I totally dig having this. And here we have this big hefty guy in all of his absolute glory. I really dig this dude. I really do. Now let's get a little bit of controversy, I suppose, out of the way right away. It regards his size. You see, a lot of people feel like he's small for a leader class toy. And I can see the argument when we look at things like the Powers of the Prime line, or even when we look at the Studio Series Grimlock, who I do not have. He just doesn't fit in my collection. But you know what? Let's talk about him now. I've seen it. I've seen a lot about that Grimlock, and I think the paint is absolutely stellar. The molding is stellar. It's an easy 10 plus. It's you know, 20 million. It is more art than toy. The conversion is interesting, involved, but interesting, and it does give like a spiky dino mode anyway. So I sort of dig that. I'm going to say that his transformation it has elements of the like Beast Wars Megatron. It has elements of that. Of course, a lot of things are changed, but it seems pretty nice for the most part, smooth. I'm going to say his transformation is an easy 9, and his articulation is better than other versions of movie Grimlock that we've gotten. There are still limits to him, especially with the legs, and I kind of don't really dig the mace hand. I really feel like it would have been nice if he had an actual hand and we somehow could put the mace over it or in his hand or something like that. But I understand why they did what they did. The articulation is all right. 7, you know, again, like I said, he's more art than anything. Overall score for Grimlock, not having him in hand, and if I get an opportunity to actually review him, we'll see if those sort of scores adjust some. But just knowing what I know about him, I'd say he's about a solid 8.5, 9. I mean, it's a strong figure, maybe even higher than that, but it's a strong figure. And if you're into movie Dinobots, if you're into that aesthetic, you're into having a movie version of Grimlock, man, get rid of whatever it is you got and get the Studio Series 1, because it is bar none the best rendition of that character that we have had come down the pike. However, I was able to find a place for this guy. And I was on the fence about him because he was at a higher price point. And if you know me, you know that in the last while, especially with the Last Night line, I did a lot of belly aching about the higher price point for figures that I felt were really more subpar, though the Studio Series has been blowing me away. And arguably, some would say they are worth a little bit of a higher price point because of the extra engineering and the extra paint apps. Was this guy? Well, that brings us back to the size, at least first, because there's a couple of issues to talk about with that. The size. Here he is next to something like Studio Series Stinger, who I looked at in episode 390, and I really like this Stinger. I think it's a great deluxe class figure. A little bit small, but I think it kind of matches. By the way, just as a little update to him, when I did the transformation for him, like so many people, I did it like this, and he looks fine. But there's a little kind of center roof piece, like you can open out his whole arm, it makes the entire roof, but there's a little center roof piece here that you can push out to the side, and it kind of makes that arm cannon stinger thing like more tri-sided, and I think it looks a little cooler. So you can do that. There is a hinge there for it, so that's cool. By the way, I will note now that Stinger weighs in at about 64-65 grams. There's a reason I'm noting that. Here he is next to a guy I looked at in episode 272 and was not the most sold on, but it's a figure that a lot of people know, a mold that a lot of people know by now. Here he is next to the Last Night Voyager class Optimus Prime, and he is certainly bigger than that Voyager class. The Voyager class Optimus weighs in at about 154 grams or so, roughly, if I'm not mistaken. Now, here's the interesting part. And this is why I'm going to put kind of the whole debate of him being a leader class figure to rest. Here he is next to the leader class Evolution Optimus Prime. And as you can tell, he is significantly shorter than Optimus. And that's where the kind of controversy has come in, with a lot of people saying he's not a leader class figure. Now, I'll note as well that I looked at Optimus in full in episode 347, and I think the guy is fantastic. So is the Orion Pax figure. But here's the thing. I understand the argument when you look at the height of the two, because you look at Blackout, and though he's not as small as a Voyager, even with his junk up over his head, he is significantly shorter. But when we look at the weight of the plastic used, Optimus comes in, and for the record, I'll note this now for anybody who doesn't know, modern day leader class figures typically tend to weigh in somewhere between 310 and 320 grams. Well, Blackout weighed in at 313. Optimus weighed in at 318. Yes, he is ever so slightly heavier, but generally they're about the same weight. Blackout has more bulk, he has a higher parts count, and I think that is probably why he got put in the leader class size. He basically uses the correct mass of plastic, and that's what determines the price point for size, not the height. Although, that being said, the leader class Optimus here was, around these parts, a good $10 cheaper, 15 in certain locations, and he is, 5 ounces heavier. So, take that for what it's worth. But that being said, Blackout also gains a huge amount of size when we convert him. We're going to get into that shortly as well. So paint apps for the guy. A lot of people said he has no paint. Here's the thing. He actually, stock out of package, has a fair amount of paint. A lot of it is smaller detailing. But the gray paint compared to the gray plastic, or at least this lighter gray plastic, is very hard to distinguish between what's painted and what's plastic. It's an awesome, awesome color match. We have, stock black that was up on these, turbine sections, We have a bunch of little details in helicopter mode. A couple more could have been added. But then the joints that kind of make up his thigh, his knee, his bicep, they were a darker shade of really unpainted gray. Fantastic molding. I added a lot of custom paint apps here myself. A lot of silver and gold on his thighs and legs, on his bicep. His hands are silver with gold highlight. I put gold on, I guess, the kneecap tips. I put some gold and some silver down on his toe bits. There are, see if you can see this, there are like pistons and stuff here on the side. I have silver and gold added to that, some on the back. Here's the thing though, he looks so amazing in helicopter mode that I didn't add any apps that can be seen in helicopter mode because he looks glorious. So, what do I say for paint apps? Stock at a package, it's definitely Blackout, there's no doubt. He has great styling, it's so much going on here, but it works so well. We even have some gunmetal gray that was up here that's nice. And a lot of silver and gunmetal gray on the face, glorious red eyes. It was all right at a package. I'm going to say it was a strong 9 at a package. With what I added on, I think it's now a 10. Like I even added a bit of gold over right here. I think it's a 10. I think he looks phenomenal. If you don't do any custom paint apps yourself, it's still a 9. Like he still looks phenomenal. And he has a presence and bulk and heft. It's great. Articulation. Now that's where the weakness comes into this guy a little bit. It's not that it's bad, it's just it could have been, I think, a little bit better than what it actually is. So, and kind of understandable why it's the way it is. I mean, look how bulky the dude is. Would you really expect him to be like a ballerina, you know, or a gymnast? Probably not. Probably not. And there are a few surprises with the articulation that I didn't expect as well. So, looking at the articulation, his head can go left and right. It does hit into the side pieces eventually, but I mean, you have a decent range. If he looked anymore, he'd just be looking into this engine turbine piece anyway. A little bit down, not much up, like a little, he can nod, but that's about it. In terms of the arms, they can come well forward, they can go, I'll say well back, even though the rotors kind of get in the way, but they can go well back, really because of transformation. We have a bicep swivel, we have 90 degrees at the elbow, we have the ability to only go out about that far. It'd be nice if this kind of circular piece here had a hinge on it that would have allowed it to bend up, but it doesn't really. There's a tab on the back right here where it's supposed to tab in. It doesn't really hold well on mine, so as a result he has a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of a butterfly joint to get across his body a little bit. The wrists, unfortunately, do not move. Though the thumb does open, the wrists are facing forward in an unnatural position. That is slightly unfortunate, but there is a mod you can do for it. I haven't done it, but I've seen it done, where basically you, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this or not, we'll try. There's a pin over on the side here that holds the entire kind of hand section. Maybe if I open his arm up, we can see it a bit better. There's a pin that holds this entire hand section in. And you can knock the pin out if you know how to knock pins out and you're skilled enough. You can take the whole handpiece, turn it on its side, you're going to drill another hole kind of just across from where the thumb is, and you will be able to put the pin back in or put a screw in there, whatever. I would suggest probably put a screw in, because if you put the pin back in, then the hand will slide back and forth on the pin. So probably use a very small screw. Insert that and, you know, twist it hand tight. The hand will still be able to pivot up and down like this. I've also heard of a way to do it where the hand will pivot left and right, but I'm not sure what that mod is. When you convert him to helicopter mode, the hand will not be able to fold in like this and go covered up. It will stay out just a little bit, but honestly it just looks like helicopter kibble, so it's up to you if you want to do the mod to put the hand in the right position. It can be done. I'm not fiddling with it, but it can definitely be done. What else do we have? Well, we don't have a waist, unfortunately, because of how he transforms. This here can move up and down. A lot of people call it a cannon. It's not. It's a refueling rod. You can use it as a cannon if you want. I did put a little bit of gold on this as well, on a bit of the molded detail. You can take that out and you can get his hip skirt up about that far out of the way. Then we get to the legs, and up at the hips they're on really heavy ratchets, but the leg can get well forward. Well, maybe not well forward. It can get, I guess, well forward. That's not bad for a size. It could go well back as well. To bring it well back, you really have to untab the backpack and sort of bring it out. So, you know, you could take it back further if you want to fiddle with kind of partially transforming him. We have a thigh swivel. We do have a, I'll bring the leg forward again to show this. We do have a knee that's quite deep to 90 degrees. Now, there's another hinge down here because by rights, when you convert this guy, you're supposed to chicken leg him. That's up to you if you do that. I'm not doing it. It also adds a little bit of height to him, which I like. And out to the side, on another ratchet, not quite as heavy as the forward and back, he can go, you know, pretty much full splits out to the side. So that's effective. And he stands like an absolute champion. In terms of his feet, he does have a little bit of an ankle pivot, a little bit of an ankle rocker, so you can get him in that sort of a stance if you want. It's not a big one, but he does have it. And like I said, his feet are huge, so he stands like an absolute champion. And you would expect him to probably be really back heavy. He's really not. I guess I'll also mention that, you know, that rotor can go around on his arm. Now, in the film, the rotor on his back is what went on his arm to become that, I don't even know what kind of a melee weapon, I suppose. It could go on his arm. This is his tail one. It's a little bit different than what the film had, but it's acceptable. You know, it's there. And you can put it on either arm because it just pegs into a 5mm peg right there. Though I think this arm is actually accurate. We had a 10. The dude's articulation is all right, but the hands being forward, that's a little bit of a nuisance. The arms having a little bit of a limit is a bit of a nuisance. I don't know why there are really heavy ratchets forward. I guess it gives him great stability. I like ratchets, don't get me wrong, I love clicky ratchets, but the ones out to the side are heavy but not too heavy. The ones forward and back are real heavy, and I don't think they needed to quite be as, you know, clicky as what they are. Nevertheless, the articulation is mostly there. I'm going to say it's about a 7. It's about a 7. It's mostly effective, not perfect, but mostly effective. The things that are ineffective really relates to the hands, having to kind of stay with his 2 fingers forward, and that tab in the shoulder not quite tabbing in. Besides that, I think it's all pretty acceptable. Of course, the guy's missing a waist. That is a big drawback for him, unfortunately. Nevertheless, because everything else is there, you can definitely get some dynamic poses with the guy. Okay, so we had a 7, we had a 10, or a 9 if you know, if we're going to talk about stock in a package. We'll go with a 9 because that's stock in a package. A 7 and 9, the guy currently is getting an 8. Strong figure, not perfect, but strong figure. Now we get to the conversion, and a lot of people feel like, oh, it's so daunting because where do you start with this mess? And it's so daunting because it's 46 steps or so the instructions say. I'm right there with you. It does seem very daunting, and when I got this guy in a package, I really did not know where to begin with him. As always, I want to go from this mode to his alt mode, because I always like to show you guys fresh in a package so you know exactly what it is you're dealing with. Although I feel like pretty much everything that I've seen for this guy so far takes him from his helicopter mode back to robot. I do think that that's a little bit of an easier way to go. However, because this guy elongates so much, I fully expect that we're going to have to do some kind of camera adjustments as we go here. So we're going to start off, and again, like we always do, we're going to try and do the kind of easy stuff first. And the easiest thing to do first is to pick off his tail fin thing, and there's a wing here, and we bend that out. And I know a lot of people might complain and say, hey, that piece comes off. But the alternative to having this one piece parts form would be not having the kind of rotor thing on his forearm. So I accept it, because it's a piece of, you know, parts forming where when you take it off, it still has a place to go and it still serves a purpose. And when we have parts forming like that, I'm cool with it, man. I'm cool with it. By the way, we do have a bit of paint up right there, and there's paint back here that's a white stripe with two red ones outside, and it says Blackout on it. So, you know, really in disguise there when you put your name on your tail fin. I don't think that's accurate to the movie, but hey, whatever. It's another piece of detailing, and I'm cool with it. So that we got that off. I would suggest to you that it's probably a good idea now to basically get the arms in a decent position. We'll say a decent position. So, and the arms, for the record, the arms are the biggest part of doing this guy in terms of his complexity, we'll say. A lot of people also say, hey, the 6 rotors for the helicopter mode, they're going to get in your way. They might. Let's hope they don't. Typically, I don't tend to open them out until the very end, and I kind of just push them off to the side or whatever. We'll see how it goes. So we open out the arms, and when we open out the arms, what we have really is a peg right here that went into this rectangular slot right here. We fold the hand in, and we're going to take the arm and rotate it around, because really that's what we need to do. There is a bit of a guide here to help you out. Oh, and we can start to bend this piece back. This whole section here will tab into this section, this section right here. So because we know that, it helps to sort of guide us, and there is a bit of a weird tolerance to get this whole panel piece into place, but we'll talk about that later. We come over to this side, and we do the same thing. It's a great start when your camera runs out of juice and your battery needs to be replaced. Right when you're kind of starting the transformation. Okay, just for kind of clarification here, all I have done so far is the hands folded up inside and the kind of arms taken apart and the biceps turned around. Alright, we're going to sort of, I guess, leave that for now. Yeah, we'll leave that for now. Alright, so next, it's probably easiest if we sort of deal with his feet section. You bring down on a little peg in here, this whole foot section. You turn it around, you angle out a little piece here. There's I guess a little rectangular notch that goes over a little peg. And then you push that back up. We're going to do the same thing over here, where we angle it down, we turn it out around, we push it back up, we bring this piece out, and this little rectangular section here goes over a little peg right there, and we have those pieces out. The legs, really, they will turn to the side, and is it this way? No, we turn them toward each other, sorry. We turn them toward each other and straighten the leg out. And I love how the plastic here is fed through this piece of plastic, and really as you move his foot, it sort of, you know, moves with it. I think that's so cool. So we straighten that leg out, and turn it at the thigh. And you can see just how tall this dude is starting to get because of that. Like I said, there's a nice bit here to have to deal with it. We're going to come to the back pack here, and though these are sort of in the way a bit, we untab the backpack. There's a little notch up here, and this little, well, I guess a little slot right there, and a little notch right here. You bring that out. You bring down that section, and trying to get these out of the way so I can show you. When you bring this back, you need to really kind of straighten it out. Now we can't do it yet because we still have the whole kind of body together, but it's kind of important that I show you this. So I'm going to get these out of the way. This guy's difficult to show. This panel in right here has a little notch in it that goes to a little slot on his back right there. That's how you solidify the, body for this guy. You bring that in and it notches in right there. To go to helicopter mode, you need to take it off. Now, out of package, that was not done, and I felt like his backpack was sort of falling away from his body more than I would have liked, and I didn't realize that this whole panel really fits up in a slot right here. It was extremely tight to pop that out the first time I did it. So take note of that. If it feels like you might break it, you won't, but it's a really kind of tight notch thing to do. So we take that out, and we take the entire back and straighten it out. Now, I'm getting these up out of the way. Now, that whole panel that I just said that went into his back comes down right there and notches in. This panel in right here is the one that was really, really hard to get out. Really hard to get out. And we have that all straightened up. And now that we have that all straightened up, we have an opening, like a cavity inside of his back there. That cavity is where basically his hips will go. So, you can tell how difficult this is actually getting to show. Whoo boy. Okay, so the hips. You untab them because they just tab up under the waist, and you bring them back. Now you might say, hey, you're starting to bring that back and the legs are not in the right position. They're not, because you need to bring the hip skirt forward and you need to angle the legs forward. And now that you have the legs angled forward and the hip skirt forward, now you can bring the whole thing up. Whoa, baby. And we have all of this just sort of free flowing and flailing back here. Holy moly. Whew. Let's readjust slightly and start to kind of deal with the front of this dude again. Okay, now for the front of this guy. And the arms are going to be the biggest thing, but before that we're going to deal with this, I don't know what it is, engine turbine thing up over his head. It's on a center hinge kind of deep in the body that the first time I moved it, I felt like I was going to break the guy. You won't, but it was really stiff on mine, so be careful about it. We're going to start by kind of getting the head out of the way and the nose of the helicopter done. Everybody that I have seen so far, it shows him going from helicopter to robot, and they all say the same thing. They push up on a panel underneath, the head pops up, and they say, when you go back to helicopter mode, you just push the head down. I cannot do that. I cannot just push the head down. It will not work. So what do? Either I have to get something to kind of root that piece out from underneath, or I start pushing in right there on kind of the center of his chest, just above what I got painted gold. I start pushing down there, and if I'm real lucky, that will be enough to sort of start to bring the bottom here out. There. Like that. And I'll bring it up, and his refueling rod thing will also come out now. And we'll bring that all the way out. that also has his front landing gear on it. Ooh, speaking of which, I didn't do his back landing gear. We'll do that before we tab this guy together. Now the head can push down. And everybody pushes it down about that far and says he's looking out through the cockpit section. No, there's actually a panel that fills in a space underneath here, and you keep pushing the head down all the way so that this panel fills in that space. Then you kind of slightly angle the turbine piece back, and there's a little flap in here. It's part of the cockpit section, and you need to get it out. It's a bit of a pain sometimes to get out, depending on where it gets held up in there. Like mine is really held up under the engine turbine at the moment. And yikes, my little tab there really got caught up. Okay, so once you do have it out, you fold that up, you fold this piece down, and there's your front of your helicopter done. Now, using this gray hinge back here, you should be able to angle the entire turbine piece down behind the cockpit section. Angle the whole thing down. Okay, so now we have the front done. We still have to deal with the arms, but before we do that, just very quickly, if you didn't do it earlier, which I didn't, come to the back, and really it's on the side of the foot. Flip out the landing gear and flip out the landing gear on the back portion. We're going to try and keep these sort of out of the way at the moment. They're a bit of a nuisance. I mean, it's not as bad as what some people make it out to be, but yeah, they're a bit of a nuisance and in the way. So we have to deal with the arms, but before we do that, we have these two little sections in the center that are kind of out over the turbine pieces. Those two little sections, they come together now and cover that turbine piece. A lot of people say that these don't tab together well. I don't really have an issue with them. There you go, they're tabbed together fine. On the side here, we have this flap that straightens out, and then it comes up kind of behind these two sections that we just put together. You might even want to get the turbine piece out of the way. Bring that up. And over on this side, you do the same thing. You bring it out, you straighten it up, you bring it up, and it comes in behind the turbine, and you tab them together. You might have to squeeze those two little front pieces together again. Now it's being a bit of a nuisance, but we'll deal with that after. This is the main kind of body of the helicopter now done. Now we need to deal with the arms. I would not put these pieces back yet because you need to get the arm kind of up and past them, and that can be a bit of a nuisance. So the arms, you want to straighten them down. And we're going to straighten them back. And when we straighten them back, this whole section here is going to tab into this section. Also, as we do it, the other flap here needs to kind of come up behind this turbine and open out, and then the whole thing fits up along the side. It's a couple of weird movements to have to do at once. So we start to bring this up. Oh, actually, before we start to bring that up, we need to untab the shoulder. So we untab the shoulder. By the way, we have a tab here and a tab up here. We have a slot here and a slot here. On this side, for my version of Blackout, they were extremely tight. I have a stress mark down here. My suggestion to you would be, after you untab the arm, if you feel like it's really tight, honestly, sand down these rectangular pegs just a little bit. That's what I did, and now it fits snug, but not too tight. Now that you have this out to the side, now you can bring this piece up and tab it in. Like that. And now you'll notice we have these two flaps here. This one needs to open out, but if we open it out right now, it's going to be out in front of this engine piece, and that's not what we want. So again, trying to get these rotors out of the way. We're going to start to open it out and bring the shoulder down, open out the rest of the way, and then there's another hinge right here. When you think you've cleared the engine, just as I did there, then start pushing the other hinge up. And then, thankfully, bring the shoulder down the rest of the way. We're not going to tab anything in there yet, but you get the idea. We're going to do the same over on the other side. Exact same motion. We untab the arm. This one was fine, by the way. I didn't have to shave anything down. We untab the shoulder, I guess. We bring this piece up. We lock these two pieces together. And again, we want to get this tab opened up in behind the turbine section. Like that. And then we start angling it up. Didn't quite work. It's a little bit of a nuisance to do this one piece. Not going to pretend that it's not. It is, because otherwise if you just bring it up, it doesn't have the clearance. So you really do need to kind of try and open it so that it will go in behind. And bring that up there. And now we have this one on the side. And do not forget those landing, I guess, wheels on the back. Now that we have all of this here like this, we can start to tab it together. And this is a series of just tabbing stuff together. The nice thing is the tolerances are such that everything really tabs together pretty nice. For the most part, easily. I don't really have any major issues, although me saying that now, I'm probably going to have a bunch of major issues. I do find, however, you have a little tab back there that goes into a little slot right here. I do find that when you tab one side of this on, you almost need to hold it as you tab the other side on. And I said that there was one side tabbed in. I didn't feel like I needed to show both, so I'm just going to show it on this side. You see you got a set of teeth and notches. Before we do that, we'll bring that piece down. It does help solidify the side here a bit. If you didn't do it on the other side, bring that piece down. They're just on gray hinges up right here. And I still suggest holding on right here. And now you should be able to just kind of solidify things here. Like that. I mean, no problem. I mean, the other side was just as easy to do. You take your tail fin, and we have a slot in the back there. So you take your tail fin and you put it in the slot back there. I had a little pop there. Straighten that wing piece out. There's the rear of the helicopter. Now also done. And wow, is this guy a big boy. Underneath here you have these two notches right here. You put the tail of Scorponok up over his back, and then you fit him up here so that the tail fits in there. Maybe I'm doing this the wrong way. There, the tail fits up in that notch. That's how he stores. And now that we've got everything done after all that, we start to open these out. I have one that has a stress mark, so be careful with yours, but in the end, assuming I have them all out now, yeah, in the end, boom, here you have the glorious Blackout. He really does elongate to become huge, but he looks glorious. The transformation might look a little cumbersome in the review, but that's because he gets so big. The truth is, even though the guy has a lot of panels, for example, they all fit together really nicely. The tolerances are great. When he's done, and we look underneath, like we really don't have a bunch of robot kibble hanging out at all. It just looks like helicopter parts. I was going to say airplane, but helicopter parts. There is a gray painted or a beige painted window on the side of them. There's 2 or 3 more molded down the side. I guess you could paint them in if you wanted to, or paint them black or something. I don't feel the need. I think he looks stunning just as he is. The transformation is a 10. If you are a collector or a fan of the movies, it's a 10. This is a great Blackout. Is it for kids? Probably not. At least not for kind of the average fan. If you have a kid who is a really big Transformers fan and is really familiar with transformations, even though this guy's 46 steps, they can probably handle it, even though he gets kind of big for little hands. For the average fan, he's gonna be, you know, an absolute beast to do, but boy, oh boy, what a glorious beast it is. Overall score for this guy, he was getting a 9, a 10 for transformation, or he was getting an 8, a 10 for transformation. Overall, the guy is a solid 9, even despite limitations with his arms only being able to go out so far and with his waist. I wasn't really into Blackout. I never had a connection to him. I barely remembered him from the movie, but boy, is he a great bruiser to add to my Decepticon alliance. And wow, right? Didn't I tell you? Did I not tell you? He's fantastic. I mean, he's not perfect. Don't get me wrong. He's not perfect. And before I kind of talk about him, let me just mention again Grimlock. Like I said, he doesn't really fit my collection. I respect him. I think that if you are a fan of the Movieverse Dinobots, that the Studio Series Grimlock is the best incarnation, hands down, that we have gotten of that particular character yet. And he is well worth the pickup. Maybe more art than toy, but well worth the pickup if you're down for it. This guy, however, does fit in my collection, and I'm so glad to have him. He is fantastic. He is definitely a leader class figure. He's hefty, and that's the key. He has the plastic in him. It's just how it's redistributed. There is a kind of a crazy parts count, I think, here for a figure of this size class in the main line. What he kind of falls down on would have to be the outward motion of the arms, the lack of a wrist swivel, and probably the lack of a waist. But what he does right, he does stupendously well, so very stellar that it cannot be overlooked, and it really outshines whatever little weaknesses he does have. No, he's not perfect, but he is definitely worth adding. He is definitely fun with an intricate and involved transformation, but not overly complex. Everything fits together elegantly and tabs together nicely. This is what I would call a complex transformation that's not over-engineered, but it's done just right. Anyway, let me know what you think about Blackout. I know I like him. You know, I always like to hear your thoughts. Again, I'm going to say, please hit that subscribe button. Stick with us here. Have your say. Let me know what you think. Thank you for giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I know how important it is, and I very much look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit right here inside the videos.